Welcome to the Transmission Coaching Podcast, powered by ATRA. Today's podcast is sponsored by Gears Magazine, your magazine for the automatic transmission rebuilding industry. Be sure to get into Gears. Get your free subscription at gearsmagazine.com. Click on subscribe. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the Coaching Podcast. And now here's your host, Coach Lance Wiggins.
Welcome to another edition of the Transmission Coaching Podcast. My name is Lance Wiggins. I'll be your host today. With me is Jimmy Taylor. This is a Gears Overdrive edition. If you haven't gotten your Gears for the September issue, make sure to check it out. Yep, we're pointing it out right there. And you can get into Gears at gearsmagazine.com. Jimmy, welcome to the show today. We're going to talk about the AS69RC, and it has got me all tickled pink about what you found here and some of your research, and I'm sure our listeners are going to be very excited to find out that we have a fix for them, and it's already been proven, and we can start sharing this with everybody else. Before we get started, what are some of the applications we're talking about here with this? I mean, this is a pretty good sized transmission. So
right, it's introduced in 2013 in later Ram trucks, 3500, 45, 5500 series, with the 6.7 diesel. Heavy duty applications, usually a cabin chassis application, or something that might need a PTO.
Truck.
Tow truck is a good example. Okay.
Snow plows, et cetera.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about some wiring issues, and some of the DTCs here. You mentioned right off the bat in the Jack Reacher books and movies, if you've ever seen those, as Tom Cruise, I think, played in a couple of them. So Reacher often says this line: in an investigation, details matter. In this particular scenario, the details more than just matter. It's a matter of comeback, cost, overcost, too much time.
Right.
And
we're going to devote a lot of time and money going into the wrong direction.
Oh, man. The TCM located outside the vehicle.
No, inside the vehicle.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Outside the transmission.
Yeah. There we go.
It's up on the shelf.
Okay.
No, it's up under the dash usually.
Okay.
Driver's side dash is housed up there. So it's fairly dry, secure, but I've seen some of these work environments that these trucks run in.
Yeah.
So you can run into wet, damp conditions there too.
I actually find that when you have an external TCM, PCM, ECM, whatever you want to call them, it's easier to diagnose transmission related problems because you're down to just simply wiring or solenoids. You can't, when a TCM is housed and everything's together on the valve body with the solenoids, it's kind of hard to determine the exact problem in a solenoid issue unless you have a tester tool or a buzz tool or something like that. Like, you can't just put a clamp on it and check for amps. You can't. You just can't do that. But in this case, you can, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned that the code that you're referring to in your article here in the September issue, P0966, pressure control solenoid, circuit low. Mm-hmm. Typically you hear circuit problems where they're low or high, but typically it's low. What's the threshold that we're looking for?
All right. So on the circuit low, this circuit will have either no volt. Well, they'll have no. We'll just say no voltage. And that is kind of subjective to the circuit we're testing on that. If it's below a certain threshold of voltage, the computer is just going to give you a low code on that. So you could have a shorted circuit, short to ground, or an open wire. Those will both give you the same thing. If you have a lot of resistance, so there's corrosion in the wire and it brings that voltage down enough, it will still throw this code. Typically that threshold is going to be 8, maybe 10 volts. So if it falls below that, we get 6.
Yeah.
Well, there's voltage, but it's not enough.
Right. And testing it with an amp clamp, obviously, we just talked about that. That's a doable. That's
very
something
doable.
That's easily done. Does this system, it looks like on page 18, you've got figure 1 here, you've got the solenoids. You have your linear, you call them linear solenoid plus, linear solenoid negative. So
Right.
this is a ground type of system. I mean, it's PWM, I'm assuming, right?
It is a ground controlled system, and each individual solenoid gets its own individual power source off the TCM. So it's not like the TCM is powering up all the solenoids through a common circuit. They
Right.
are individually powered and grounded out that way. It is modulated PWM. And so, like we were talking about the low and the other codes are high, and then there's a performance. But on the low and high, voltage is sent out on the power side, goes through the solenoid, and on the return side, which is the ground control, inside the computer, there's a small little lead in there where that computer is monitoring that voltage. So if it's not been grounded inside the module, and it sees that low, voltage is below that threshold, then it's going to pop that 9066 code on.
So this is where you're in the great northeast, right, or Canada, or even some of our northern states, the Dakotas, or where you got harsh conditions, wintry condition. Alaska, we'll take Alaska, your home state, where you have conditions where corrosion, or the coast for that matter, corrosion is a thing. So
Right.
a bad body ground could have a problem with this.
Absolutely. Insufficient voltage to the computer or ground to the computer can give you these codes and more. The way that I kind of relate that is the way humans react when we go up in altitude, you run out of oxygen, get low in oxygen. There's a test that's done for high altitude
Sickness.
Well, just, testing, what have you, but they want to, give you a task to do, maybe it's count cards, identify cards, then you don't recognize what it is.
Can't process it.
Or you think you have done an action and you haven't done it.
Yeah.
Draw an 8 and you got to, scribble.
I've seen that test for pilots or astronauts.
Pilots,
or
astronauts.
Like deprivation or something like that. So they put you in a
it's an oxygen deprivation system. Yeah. So computers, instead of oxygen, it's electrons. I don't have enough voltage, enough electrons passing through, and you can run on cases to where it has commanded a circuit to be turned on, and it's got its little switches inside the computer that it thinks that it did, but there's not enough power to turn those switches on, to activate those switches.
Yeah.
So as the computer's logic is, that circuit's on.
Yeah.
And so some cases you'll have it saying that it commanded a certain gear. It never shifted because there was no signal coming out, out of the computer to the solenoid.
Yeah. It's nice to understand the concepts behind these particular codes, because a lot of guys, and this is just by the sheer nature of the beast, right? Mm-hmm. You get a code, it's to replace the part.
Right.
That happens a lot. And in this case, we're like, wait, hang tight for a second, because there's more to come here. So I do want to talk about page 20 here of Jimmy Taylor's September issue of Gears. Get into Gears at gears.com. It's sponsored on his full page by KB Cores. Make sure to reach out to KB Cores and check out what they have to offer. So we're going to go to page 20 here. On page 20, you're mentioning here with the key on, the engine running, so we're full power here.
Right.
The TCM is going to provide the 12 volts. Now, is it 12, 14, 4? Is it battery voltage? Is it alternating voltage? What kind of voltage are we really looking at here?
It'll be a minimum of 12. When it's running, it may run system voltage, so 13.2, 13.6, whatever the alternator's putting out.
So anything that's 12.6 or more, that's what we're looking for.
Right.
Okay. And then you're mentioning that it's going to provide the voltage onto the dark green wire, so it's the power wire we're talking about.
Right.
And then on the way back, there's a dark green wire. Dark green with light is your power wire. Dark green with tan is your ground wire, or that's your command wire, if you will.
Right.
And then we should expect to see battery voltage through the circuit. If it's less than the battery voltage, That's what's going to set the code. So if it's less than battery voltage when you're testing it at the PCM, then you know you've got a problem in the wiring down the solenoid or on the way back.
Correct.
Quick test. Can we trace wires?
Can trace wires, pop it off the connector off the transmission and go wire, end to end, check that. Go at the pinpoint on the connector and test the circuit without pulling the pin. We can check that solenoid through the internal harness and the solenoid itself.
Do these things have any internal harness issues that you're aware of at this time?
Internally, no, but there are a great deal of issues with corrosion and what have you getting in
on the outside.
On the outside.
Yeah. So nothing like the old Volkswagen 096 problems internally, right?
No.
Nothing like that. Okay.
Nothing widespread like that.
Yeah. In the article, it's very interesting, by the way. Jimmy did a great job writing it. I mean, I was captured by the, oh no. Like there's a legitimate, oh no, this is problematic. In the article, Jimmy's referring to the code that you received, and it's a low voltage code. And in that segment, he's going over the certainties of the code, and it's a hard but in this case, the details do matter more than you think, because the code description that you get from the factory, the code description that you downloaded online from some source that you went to, usually they get that from the factory. It's wrong. I'm going to repeat that. It's wrong. So the only place that we currently have it right now is in the September issue of Gears Magazine. Of course, we're also splashing it out to anybody that's gone to the seminars, so you can check that out as well. But Jimmy, when you figured this out, it must have been like gold, right? Like you must have went, oh no, there's a problem.
Yeah. So as a technician, I never like spending other people's money. I feel guilty about that, whether it's a customer or, my boss's money. I want to make sure that if I spend that money, it's going to the right place and doing the right job. And I'm taking calls on this, and this is what prompted this article, to where somebody has followed this code, followed the wiring diagram, and decided that, well, the circuit checks out good, the solenoid's good, it must be a TCM.
No. And just to clarify things, almost every single fault code that you have, it's one of three things. It's everything's fine, retest it again.
Right.
You have a TCM, or replace the TCM, or replace the component, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, 9 times out of 10, that's the three things that you're going to see on each one of them. In this case, as they go through and testing, they're testing it, but they're testing the wrong solenoid, is what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
So this code example I used, the P0966, pressure controlled solenoid number 2, you'll go through all this testing procedure. And really, the guy that is familiar with electronics can look at that description. I'll go get a circuit wire diagram, and I'm good. I can figure this out.
Yeah.
And that's the guy that's going to be throwing a computer on a truck. Yeah. Only to find out as soon as it gets programmed, turns a key on, I got the same problem.
Same code.
So,
oh man.
And it's exactly how the first call went. They put a computer on it and did the programming. So the expense of the computer, the expense of the programming, the time,
right.
Shop time that was needed to do that, and then immediately set another fault, or the same fault rather.
My goodness. So tell the good people that are listening what they need to look out for.
All right.
Because this is big.
So when it says, and this is going to give it one example, but all of these solenoids in this transmission, when it says it is talking about pressure control solenoid number 2 circuit, whether it's open, high or low,
right,
or performance, it is talking about pressure control solenoid number 1. Everything is shifted. Number 1 solenoid is number 7 in reality.
Oh, man.
And so in this chart we have on page 20, I have what your description, what your, we'll pull off your scan tool with the DTC number and then the description that's listed. And in the next column, we will have the actual circuit that code is saying is wrong.
Man, every single one of them are off by one. That is crazy.
The only one is that single on-off solenoid. They got that one right. But anything that's modulated
Oh my goodness.
is off.
And on page 21, you've got a valve body there that has the correct descriptions, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Okay. And so A, B, C, D, E, F, G usually is like 1, 2, 3,
Exactly.
4, but not in this case.
Not in this case. And they're not even shifted by one, like they did with the diagnostic stuff. A is number 7, B is 8, and then C goes to 2. It's not even in the same order.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's very off.
Very kooky. Wow. So, what are some of the things that our listeners should be concerned over? First and foremost, as soon as you get the AS69RC, you have an electrical code. Obviously, we're going to ask you to go to Gears Magazine.
Yep.
Are we going to be putting this together in
a bulletin form? Yes,
form?
we will
Okay,
have that out
great.
in the bulletin form, and I would suspect we're going to have that in next year's seminar magazine or book as well.
Seminar book as well. That's right. And that brings me to our quarter page sponsor, Dorman. I want to thank you guys for putting your advertising in Gears Magazine. Get into Gears at gearsmagazine.com. Before we go any further with this, there are guys that are out there that would like a little bit more training. Where can they go get their training?
Right here at the virtual training solutions provided by ATRA.
Awesome. Yeah. Nice plug there. You like that? That was good. Yeah, we've got 469 hours of training material from teardown and inspection to individual components of a transmission to
Fundamentals.
A lot
of fundamentals.
A lot of fundamentals. I'm actually going to be having a conversation with Dave Wilkes on Thursday. We're going to do a fundamental class. We're going to start his course up. It should be about 8 to 10 video course.
Okay.
And well, I should say 8 to 10 to start. Let's go with that, because it seems to me that's missing in our industry right now. Like, the guys are just asking for
Exactly.
fundamentals and down to earth info. Speaking of, you just got back from Des Moines.
I did.
And how was that?
I think it went very well. The school there, we did it at DMACC, so it's Community College, Des Moines. I think it's Alkeny.
Yeah.
Is
Yep.
community college. That was a fantastic school. I was super impressed the way the layout of the program. I was talking with the director there, Jerry Burns, and he walked me through to a lot of that. They start these guys off on their transmission section. They don't just do transmissions; they do the full vehicle. But their transmission area that they start these guys off on, 125s, 4060Es. Basics, get you the fundamentals, back to the fundamentals there. And then you move them into the 6 and 8 speed models. And they are working at getting 10 speed models to get these guys trained and before they get out on the streets.
And up to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're certified by GM Ford, or their classes are GM, Ford, Chrysler, Toyota, and Nissan.
Wow.
So they get all those certifications. And many of the dealerships, whenever they come out with something else or somebody needs to get certified in, they actually send
They can certify them there because
Exactly.
they're factory trained.
Exactly.
Oh man,
Like I said, it's a fantastic school.
that's great. Well, big shout out to DMAC. Thank you guys for having us up there in Des Moines, Iowa, and our good friend Ron Lingenfelter and his crew at the Midwest chapter. So that's going to do it here for another edition of the Transmission Coaching Podcast. It's a great day to fix transmissions, so let's keep fixing them together.
All right.